Philippe Prost quite well for having been a student some years ago in Belleville School of Architecture, where he is professor, and for having worked with him after the postmaster diploma in Architecture et Patrimoine, or Architecture and Heritage, as we might say in English. Not only a talented architect, yet an example, uncommon in our time, of a global way of understanding the different disciplines of architecture and their broader impact on our society. Philippe Prost trained at the Versailles School of Architecture, first specialized in urban planning and later in Architecture et Patrimoine at the Cité de l'Architecture in Paris. At first, he focused on research and collaborated together with Bruno Fortier to the exhibition and publication of the Atlas de Paris, La Métropole Imaginaire. He later turned in a more autonomous way to study modern military architecture, publishing for Electa an excellent book on the French army work on the Rocca d'Anfo, based on the progress in geometric description of the landscape conducted in Paris by Gaspard Monge and applied in Italy by military engineer Axo. The fortress is strategically located on the Lake Idro, not far from Mantova. This passion and his research, conducted with an original look on military architecture, led him to focus on the work of Louis XIV military engineer Sébastien Le Prêtre de Vauban. Later on, this focus gave him the opportunity to develop an architectural practice of great quality, starting with the restoration of the military citadel of Belle-Île-en-Mer off the Breton coast. What he learned during his researches allowed him to transpose a concrete and ante-litteram ecological approach to the project, the economy of resources and the intelligence in exploiting the shape of the sites, the use of local materials, the need to create solid works open to technical evolutions, firmitas, utilitas, and venustas, as we might say. Since then, his work spanned over three main disciplines: research, practice, and teaching, and it would be hard to mention all of it in a few minutes. As an architect, Philippe Prost has been acknowledged with several awards in France and abroad, starting with the Prix de l'Équerre d'Argent for the neighborhood La Réunion in Paris in 2004, and for La Cour des Images of Bourg-les-Valences in 2009. The redevelopment of industrial architecture is another of the fields the Atelier d'Architecture Philippe Prost, his practice, have been focusing on. The practice has achieved international resonance with the development of themes related to memory and the shape of the landscape, in particular with the International Memorial of Notre-Dame de Lorette, called Anneau de la Mémoire, in 2014. Awarded again at the Équerre d'Argent, finalist of the Mies van der Rohe Award, awarded at the RIBA International Award, Dédalo Minos International Prize, the European Prize for Urban Public Space, and the Concrete Construction Award between 2014 and 2016. At the same time, his engagement in research led him to the publication of a number of articles and books, including Vauban, Les styles de l'intelligence, une œuvre source pour l'architecture contemporaine, awarded with the Prix du Livre de l'Architecture de l'Académie de l'Architecture in Paris in 2008. He associates his research, practicing, and teaching, notably as a professor of the Belleville School of Architecture in Paris, where he has been the president of the board. I had the opportunity to teach with him in the project studio in Belleville and to discover his most recent project in a lecture organized within the DSA Architecture et Patrimoine of the same school. I could discover his most recent projects and approaches concerning the awareness that every place preserves a memory, transcends the pure concreteness of architecture. In the first lecture delivered in 1958 at the Academy of Arts in Düsseldorf, called Architecture of Our Times, the German architect Rudolf Schwarz talked about the importance of the void in geometry of architecture. What makes the Pantheon in Rome pervaded with sacredness lies in the half of the sphere that we can only guess. and the Parthenon itself is also composed of as many non-concrete elements. I think that in Philippe Prost architecture, there's this attention to the presence of the absent, which resides in the historical stratification of places and in the often missing corporality of the memory of places. In Leaving the Floor, I'm about to conclude. In Leaving the Floor to Philippe Prost, I would like to conclude this introduction by reading an excerpt from the text of Thomas Stern Eliot, Tradition and Individual Talent, first published in 1919, which precisely states about the present of the past and about the importance of this presence in turning tradition into future. The text is called Tradition and Individual Talent. Tradition cannot be inherited. If you want it, you must obtain it with great labor. It involves, in the first place, the historical sense, which we may call nearly indispensable to anyone who will continue to be a poet beyond his 25th year. And the historical sense involves a perception not only of the past and the pastness of the past, but of his presence. The historical sense compels a man to write not merely what his own generation in his bones, but with the feeling of the whole literature of Europe from Homer, and with the whole literature of his own country as a simultaneous existence, and composes a simultaneous order. This historical sense, which is the sense of the timeless as well of the temporal, and of the timeless and the temporal together, is what makes a writer traditional, and it is at the same time what makes a writer most acutely conscious of his place and time, of his contemporaneity. And I now leave the floor to Philippe Prost.
Thank you, Emanuele. I would firstly like to thank Federico Bucci for inviting me to deliver this video conference in the context of Mantova Architettura 2021. I recall the first time that he invited me to Mantova, which was in 2015, and since then our paths have crossed many times. I would also like to take this opportunity to thank Elisa Boeri for her fine article, L'espace du vivant between memory and innovation, that she contributed to the publication Spaces of Memory, Commentaries on 21st Century Buildings, published in 2020. Today, I have given my lecture the following title: The Site and the Project, Living Memory and Open Artwork. Angers, Meudon, York, Bruay, each new project starts in the same way. From the first encounter with the site, somewhat has thought one is meeting someone for the first time who will occupy an important place in one's life. With the initial site visit, the first emotions come to the surface, the same ones that will form the basis of the project in due course. The mind goes to work. The first impressions are lasting ones. Even subconsciously, they never really leave you, nourishing the project, sometime without you knowing it. Throughout its maturation, memories come back to you once more when the site working begins. With the initial site visit, the first emotions come to the surface, and the same ones that will form the basis of the one project in due course. Then come the concept of the architectural projects, which begin with an appraisal of the site in which it will take shape. In order to begin to resonate with the site, this initially involves defining a position simply in respect of the site at the point. One must constantly read and reread the context. Above all, one must force oneself to hold back from writing anything down, and even more so from designing the project until one is sufficiently impregnated with the essence of the location. Reading the context means deciphering it, discovering and understanding the operation that little by little contributed to its coming into being, and being capable of organizing the chronology of events mentally at first and then graphically. As a function of the combination and superimposition of natural events and human intervention, the context is in a way the unique product of a condensation of time, the sedimentation of the centuries. The context is everything that at once geographical and physical, a matter of planning and of architecture, but it's also historical and artistic, social and political. For me, there is no creation without memory. During my work as an architect, the memory of places, spaces, of sensations, and of the life of human beings and of traces they left by their presence has a defining role. There is where my creation finds its roots. It constantly revisits again and again the form and materials and expertise. From the study of the architecture of warfare and the work of Vauban when I was a researcher, I took away from this two fundamental approaches, that of art and of nature, which consists of taking advantage of everything that nature or the context make available to you. And the other one, that of economics and resources in all respects, materials, time, money. From this economic aspect flows a form of rationality that generates an intrinsic beauty. Working in this way with art and nature in all of my projects, I seek to take advantage of the situation. The context gives me the opportunity of designing as precisely as possible, reducing the intervention to which is essential, applying an optimum use of resources in order to effect the metamorphosis of the location. My objective is always to reveal the genius of the place, to design its future, having it resonate with the present and its past, bringing into resonance in each of my projects the history of the site with its geography, its space, and its applications. Each time, one must develop, reinvent the structure and the technique, so that the execution is the contemporary expression of the project. There is also no creation without innovation. I have chosen to set out my discourse by means of a number of project examples. Angers, Meudon, York, last project, and Bruay with the Cité des Électriciens, a realized one project. The first of them, it's Angers. It's a project about the question is to preserve a portal of the Cathedral of Saint-Maurice d'Angers. Saint-Maurice d'Angers, the first Western France Gothic cathedral, partly Plantagenet Gothic and partly Angevin Gothic, as Victor Hugo put it, a cathedral is a total art. The cathedral is the relic of itself. The cathedral is also a common heritage, an enduring monument by excellence, a place of collective memory, a place of spirituality and of life. From my point of view for this project, a 21st century work can be faithful to the 12th century. Choosing a form and a material cannot be a dogmatic choice. It is always the fruit of a situation, of a context, of a research or project aims to keep intact the cathedral emotional power. We need to be Gothic in our emotion and contemporary in our expression. The site, before the picture you have seen, the site was like this, with a first entrance before the facade. It disappeared at the beginning of the 19th century. And the plan was like this, with this part of entrance before the main part of the cathedral. And what ways is this entrance with this portal, very beautiful. Recently, the art historian discovered that the portal was completely painted. And it's a great discovering, because the question is how to conserve, to put in good state this portal with its polychromic sculpture. You see on this document the part of the portal, and you see there from each part the disappeared vaults. Just the traces of the vaults disappeared. The question was how to protect this portal with this kind of polychromic detail. Saint Maurice, the Cathedral Saint Maurice in Angers. For this, I designed a new arch to protect the restored portal, to present its polychrome statuary. The protective structure assumes the form of a homothetic arch for the portal. Occupying the axial span, the arch thus leaves visible on both sides the arches embedded in the stone wall, the final traces of the vaults of the former gallery that has now disappeared. With its own independent stability, the arch meets the portal. The hollow connection between the facade and the arch is simply closed without any anchorage or notching. You see on this picture some element, the polychromic portal, an old door, here the traces of the vaults, and here the beautiful architecture of the Gothic building cathedral. The first question was to put something on the front of the facade, 25 meters large, 75 meters high. And the question is very difficult. I have to realize that this cathedral was conceived ad quadratum, on the plane for the first part of the span, and on elevation also. It's always the same geometrical system. And so the question was also to say, is just the central or on all the large of the facade. Finally, after a lot of reflection and models, because it was a very difficult question to be able to conceive, to construct something in front of the facade, finally, I chose to have a new building just on this part to let see the vault disappeared. And here you have a sketch to show the proposition we made. At Quadratum, the plan of the cathedral, like that of its former demolished gallery, was traced at Quadratum, as was the elevation of the facade. The square also dictates the geometry and construction of this new arch. The key to the geometry of the wall and of its parts, the square enables the appropriate proportion of each of its elements to be achieved, reestablishes the relationships of scales, distant and urban as seen from the river Main, architectural as seen from the parvis or interior, allowing sufficient objectivity of distance to enable an appreciation of the portal itself. External frame structures prefabricated in high-performance fiber reinforced concrete, punctuated by arches projecting outside from the structure of the arch, and on the inside they are covered with slabs of alabaster, whose color and materials enhance the polychromic character of the statuary and its relief. Created in lightweighting metal, the railings of the enclosure are of sliding construction. The use of these two materials, alabaster, whose use goes back to the earliest days of church architecture, and high performance fiber concrete, which has been used since the end of the 20th century for some exceptional works of art, stems from the same extreme objective and durability, which is its involvement in the pursuit of a multisecular project. The arch must be perennial just as much as the patina, the expression of time, must be able to take it over, just as it does with the cathedral. You see here a detail from the non-junction between the new and the old. It's very important to be able to preserve the static shape of the cathedral and not to have to engrave inside. And here you see the part ad quadratum scheme, and in elevation we find another transcription of this play on the square. Here you can see the exterior vaults in high fiber concrete, concrete, and inside the plates of alabaster, and here the closure of the part of this building. Oh, you see, we want to try to create some work together between the old rhythm and the new rhythm. It's a question of proportions. Proceeding for the partial re-establishment of the disappeared volume that provide a good level of thermal and hygrometric stability, the arch is designed and constructed to protect the portal from the sun's rays and to provide natural ventilation by maintaining the upper and lower openings. It's very important for the conservation of the polychromic portal. Here you have a view more distant, and you see the inscription of the new volume on the front of the facade. And here you can have a look on the elevation. You can see from one end and to the other hand the traces of the vault disappeared and have just this kind of entrance for the new cathedral, and you can see just inside the Christ in Majesty. Another question was the light, diurnal and nocturnal light. By day, the discovery of the portal returns to its original perception. You see light through this section, and lighting reveals it by creating a play of light from the internal ribs, playing on the reflection on the slabs of alabaster. And you have there the view during the night it's possible to have. I will speak about another project now, the project in Meudon, in Meudon's park. A question very interesting about intervening in this beautiful site, very important site in the story of the garden art and the architecture. In this question, you can see directly the Great Axe, 3 kilometers long. The Parc de Meudon has always been a creative place. Firstly, a laboratory for Le Nôtre and his heart of the garden. Then, a location for experimentation for hot air balloons. And finally, a studio for Marc Chagall when he worked for the Opéra de Paris. In the future, around the Étang de Chalais, you see there, hexagonal geometry, and Hangar Y, you can see there, the site will become the location for a unique experience combining nature, sciences, and the arts all at once, concrete, digital, and living arts. The starting point for a journey through time and space in the discovery of artistic creation, a place for all kinds of events, encounters, and possibility. The Étang de Chalais and the Hangar Y form a unique seat. You can see here the beautiful perspective and here the Étang de Chalais. Through our project, we thought to reveal the history of this unique site by shaping its future through art and through nature. In the image of the work of engineers of this time, Le Nôtre applied the through art and through nature principles. Thus, with the starting point of a pre-existing lake at the bottom of a geographical basin, this gives it through art the figure of an hexagon placed at the articulation between the green expanse and the major axis that it traces with the entire configuration deployed over a length of over 3 kilometers. The art of transformations. You have this beautiful perspective from the 17th century and aerial view in high part. And the second element, the art of transformation, constructed from elements of the annex of the Galerie des Machines from the Universal Exhibition of 1878 in Paris. Hangar Y, sorry, Y in French. Hangar Y is testimony in this context to an approach to architecture which, very much ahead of its time, combine reuse and reapplication through a structure that can be dismantled and reassembled. It's very interesting. So three dimensions are present in this site and in the project. The first, the history of location, is always conjugated through the prism of nature, science, and arts. Nature, a topography, a lake, a gardener, a great master of gardens in the French style, sculpting the landscape on a scale proportionate with the territory, and today a nature that has progressively taken back its entitlements. These omnipresent elements, the earth, the water, and above all, the vegetation. Science is a place of experimenting for ballooning. Firstly, the balloons of Comte, a man during the French revolutions, in the old castle. Here you can see the impressive balloon. And here you can see the way to construct and to reassemble the element. The first element, here the element in more, and the actually hangar high. Science is a place of experimenting for ballooning. Firstly, the balloons of Comte in the old castle. You could see there. Here it's a place for the project. It's a moment of the project. The question was to enclose the hangar high. And I choose to use some element in silicarbonate and to put at the center a big lens, like the question of optical visualization in the 17th and 18th century, and like in the fairs. And here you have the balloon of Comte during the French Revolution, sculpting the sphere and inside a little building, and you can see how it makes at the epoch. And so it begins to be an inspiration for creating 2 pavilions inside the site. One pavilion for restaurants and one pavilion for the arts and the artistic practicals. Science, it's like I say, a very important place for experimentation, also for the dirigibles, the airships, later can the wind tunnels, but a core element for all this project, air and its flow. It's very important, being lighter than air to be able to fly in the air, but also astronomy with the observation of the stars and heavenly bodies. You have here the observatory of Meudon. It put on the top of an old castle destroyed for a part, and you can see how this astronomy sphere put on the top. It began to be another source of inspiration for the little pavilion attend. Here you have an axonometrical view of this first dispositive in front of the étang de Chalais, and the way it seems the way to use some new products like ETFE, for example, and here the place on the front of the étang de Chalais you have there. And another one also an ETFE. Another one place for this one is for the pavilion for the workshop to be able to use a workshop for seminars or has an art kid clubs for children and young people invited to visit and encounter art and creation. You have this drawing, you can see like how it put on the ground and inside under the tree, the beautiful trees of this park. It's by forging links between nature, sciences, and arts that the architecture of the project is born as its substantive evidence. Starting from air and light, eternal natural materials such as wood, more sophisticated and contemporary materials such as borosilicate or ETFE, but also starting from the art of perspective and beyond that the vision that sets landscape and architecture in motion. Think of new time in the manner of the creators of gardens discovered on the edge of the path in the park of Meudon. These two pavilions have landed like hot air balloons on the edge of the Étang de Chalet. And here on the left, you can see a part of the hangar high. And here a little model. The third project I will show to you is a project for the National Railway Museum to create a central hall to dispatch the different part of the museum in York. There is no creation without memory. So to create the new central hall of the National Railway Museum, connections must be made between its past, its present, and its future. Here you have some view on the site, a very important site in the heart of England, one of the most important, and the British chose to put there their National Railway Museum with the first, one of the first engine like this. And you can see the importance of the buildings on the site and the collection of different trains like the Eurostar for one of the most recent. Our ambition is to make Central Hall, the starting point for a unique trip into the world of railways from their origins into their future elevation. The Central Hall sits at the center of gravity of the buildings that today constitutes the museum. Here you have some historical drawings to show the evolution with the turntable, and you see here at the end of the 19th century, at the beginning of the 20th century, and some destruction disappear, and you have just two railway dispositives, and here the place where it presents in 74-75. The question to create a new central hall, I chose to use the same figure and to put this at the center of the gravity of the buildings that today constitute the museum. Station Hall, Great Hall, and North Shed, home to the future Wonder Lab, as well as surrounding railway structures like the Way Office here, or Bullnose and Peter Allen buildings. The Central Hall must become the beating heart of the museum, the place through which we arrive, from which we leave to visit, to which we return, by which we pass and we pass again for coffee, lunch, or to buy a souvenir. And here you can see design as the centerpiece of a larger system. The Central Hall is both centripetal and centrifugal, first attracting the public to its core, then distributing them to the parts of the museum of their choice. Like a train turntable, you can see a detail of these dispositives. A train turntable, it becomes a kind of human turntable. And you can see there the place for the new Central Hall inside the existing buildings. The plane is shaped like a huge gear and the building like a cylindrical cog. From the sky, the roofs appears like the blades of turbine. The architecture of the central hall is inspired by science and technology. It is an architecture expressing movement thanks to a rotated and helicoidal shape. But the building also suggests motion for the public as well as the collection. The proposed building at ground floor is both open and inviting, very porous. A welcoming shop and cafe overlook the museum square. The double-height central orientation space is the first attraction thanks to exhibition features hanging from the roof structure. It gives directions to the galleries in all parts of the museum, Wonder Lab, Great Hall, and Station Hall. Two architectural spiraling staircases lead to the upper floor where the main gallery, new gallery, and the spacious restaurant are situated. A central glass lift brings visitors to the outdoor roof terrace, which offers an exceptional view of York Minster and York Station and 360 degrees panoramic view across the city. Here you have a view on at the beginning of the night, and you can see the position in the center of gravity of the new central hall between all the different buildings. And inside, another view of the central part of the central hall. And the view from the roofs in York, to have a look on the York Minster, a well-known cathedral in York, and York Station. You can make the turning around and have a look on 360 degrees around on the city. And you have here the view on the old railway station, a beautiful building of the engineer art history. And here it's the view on 360 degrees. A model which was produced for the competition and where you can see the particularly dispositives of the building. The facades are an envelope made of glass and unglassed clay bricks. They form facets punctuated by vertical fins. Inside, the structural frame is made of visible timber columns, beams, and floor plates for a warm, natural interior environment. Brick seemed the right response because it is closely associated with the history of industrial architecture, and particularly in Great Britain, stations and railways, and because it is locally produced. Wood rather than steel and concrete, because it is now the structural material which represents the future of architecture, choosing natural resources with low embodied energy. Blue brick, because it used to exist on the site, and because this color is the right chromatic response for the existing fabric. After red, yellow, and pale blue, you can see there, blue bricks, indigo blue is the next color in the chromatic circle. So you understand the idea of the circle, the center of gravity, the turntable, and the chromatic circle, and creates a dialogue between the existing brick colors and the new brick colors. A deep and luminous blue, sometimes matte, sometimes bright. The piers are made of recycled bricks, while the facades are made of glazed bricks, screening glazed panels, iridescent and translucent, on which natural light reflects. Inside and outside, the course of the sun sets the central hall in motion. It's very important because the central light from the sun is moving, in fact, the building in an external view like is in an internal view and presence. Conclusion, as the cultural starting point for the new regeneration of the brownfield site of York Central, Central Halls tried to unify the National Railway Museum to become a museum unique in the world, attractive for its collection and innovative by design, as interested in history as in new technology, engineering, and the science of the future. It's the third project I show, and now I will present you the last project. I hope I am the time. The last project is a project who had been realized now, the Cité des Électriciens in Bruay-la-Bussière. It's another time an industrial heritage which had been transformed to reuse the site and to create new opportunities. For the Cité des Électriciens, a prototype of the 19th century mining town, the challenge was to create a place that encompassed memory, life, and creation for the 21st century. The challenge was inextricably linked with subject itself, an ordinary worker's habitat representative of very many residential buildings built in the Nord-Pas-de-Calais mining basin. And the project commissioned for this habitat was its conservation and adaptation to new modes of living, including in environmental issues, particularly thermal, and also to create a place of discovery for the population and the public, discovery the history of the housing in the mining basin and landscape also, as well as a creative center for new artists, a monument for the everyday, for the day-to-day reality of workers' lives and their habitat. An occasion, finally, to provide a demonstration of the compatibility between the built heritage and the sustainable development. It's a new tool. It's now a new tool, of economic, social, and environmental development, which contribute to the future of the mining basin territory that has been given the opportunity to become an open and dynamic space. It's very important to know that the Cité des Électriciens in Bruay-la-Bussière with the project recorded in the context of mining basin in the UNESCO World Heritage Sites as a cultural and evolving heritage asset. It's very important, this notion. It's a new notion for the UNESCO, and it's very important for a site like this and for the north of France. The environmental issue arose more acutely than ever and led to various types of research as part of the project's implementation. Here you can see the landscape before the exploitation of the coal, and you can see it's a rural landscape with a little river and with some houses. And after the industrial revolution and the coal mining, you can see there Schwarzplan meets the different construction. And you can see here a little Cité des Électriciens, a little among the very numerous city, and you can see here some terry. It's kind of black pyramids made by the scories of the carbon exploiting. And you can see, you have a look at before the project here, a look on the unused and inhabited housing. And you have a look on the several gardens, unused also. And the place, a little sad, not very, it seems not to be a beautiful place, but all the things are inside the site to be a beautiful place now. For this ordinary and fragile heritage assets dating from the 19th century, we have been able to develop a line of research on environmental issues, both in terms of energy consumption, research that would be recognized with an award by EDF, the French electrician, in the context of its concours architecture bas carbon, low carbon architecture competition, and the use of insulating materials derived from the recycling of used textile products by a social economy organization. But beyond, here you have a look on the history of the place. It's very important for me to know the history of place, to be able to conceive, to be able to sketch, to draw, to realize a project, in fact. And you see here from 1856, the beginning, the creation of the cité, and until 2013, at the time the cité was wide, abandoned. And here with the new project and with a new building, I will show you it after. It's a new building taking its place on the trace of an old building destroyed. Here you have there. And here you have the program. The way of the program is very interesting because you have very different kind of uses on the site. Here, social housing on the part, on the gray part, but you have also housing for visitors and tourists here on this part. You have also some place for the interpretation center about the housing mining history here in this building. You have also here in this new building interpretation center about the landscape mining. And you have also here some residences for artists to have to be able to create, to be able to have work on this place. And you have also, you see, a little restaurant used by everybody, and you have a lot of gardens working with the traces of the old gardens of the miners. Here you have a view on the project. But beyond contemporary construction using natural renewable materials such as wood or local material such as glass, terracotta, this was implemented in the context of the pursuit of enhanced quality and sustainability. Because in fact, it's a poor architecture, not very rich, but very simple, very well constructed. And finally, it's near one century and a half during, and it's always there. It's a beautiful testimony. Here you have the place, internal place, with the new gardens, working the landscaper with us from the 4 studio, work with the old traces of the cutting the gardens. And you have here a place completely restored very simply. One question was to open new windows in the walls, because some housing were only open on the north and with just one way to keep inside the light. So I want to create new opening, but not to lose the kind and the specificity of masonry of bricks, very, very traditional, very interesting. And I propose to create some kind of opening, some opening inside the wall, keeping out some bricks, and to refine the kind of drawings you see on the on the beautiful houses of engineers, of director, like with this kind of motif. You see that, and here you have the realization of this model. And you see, when you are here on the bank, you cannot see. You keep the way to find a wall and not something with a new opening inside. I continue. I choose for the new you have here. Here it's disappeared a little house we rebuilt only with wood, just like a trace, like a design inside this big garden. You can see there the opening for using the new housing for artists, for example. And you have here a plane with red and black, showing the black what is present on the side and the red what it's new. You see the red inside the existing building is essentially inside interiors arrangements, and you see the new building, the new interpretation center for the landscape. It's a new building because we cannot show big documents inside the old buildings. It's too small, and we have to create a new building to be able to show the big landscape, to open windows on the sides, to have view on other city, on the other cities and the Black Pyramids. And it was very important to have this. Here it's a sketch to show how the new building was conceived, It concept from the main building on site called A, and it's a very simple building with a long wall inside, with short wall to create 10 housing for people, and we chose to conserve the same volume, but to open the wall, this wall, to create some windows inside, to destroy this part to create some walls more little to be able to make some exhibits, and here to enter inside the little construction you have seen, to show to the people, to the visitors and to the public, but also to the people living there, to show the scales, the idea of scales, different scales on the same site. It's very important. And here you have the scale for the new building in this project state. Here you have the view, and you can understand there it's a building completely different from the existing buildings, completely different in the way to build it, completely different because you have just here some concrete to create the ground, but after it's completely wood construction. It's a wood construction, and inside the walls are with wood, and you have some material to isolate the buildings, make with jeans recycled to create a very well environmental isolation. And here you have something very interesting. We make some studies to understand and to be able to propose to our clients and to the EDF. We compare the two ways to construct building. At the 19th century, for the first buildings of the cité, you see the large part of brick, little part of wood, and a little part of glazing or metal. Can you see the buildings? The weight of building is more than 1,141 tons. And you see the new building will change the critter. We use a lot of wood. We use several bricks and some isolating things and glass, less glass. And you see the new building for the same surface is near the half weight. It's very important, a half weight, and the wood is the more important in this. For the structure, you have some concrete for the ground and the foundations, but in external, it's a wood. It's very important, and it creates another kind of building inspired by the volumetry of the existing building. You can see there, just with several windows very straight, like a wall. And another view on the entrance of the cité, with the new entrance of the building. It's very important for us to have this kind of changing and vision. And you can see there the report between the great building and the little building. With here, it makes the entrance of museum, in fact, of center of interpretation. And you have here a last look on the external facade, very simple, very straight, just with glazed bricks. It's very important for us to use this kind of bricks for glazed terracotta to cover the envelope, to envelope from ground to the roof ridge, from the earth to sky, the new mining basin landscape, interpretation center. At the heart of the Cité des Électriciens, I chose to use just one material, glazed terracotta, of the same kind as it's used for tiles and bricks, used to construct the mining towns, except that I chose a red glaze, the color of rubies, to convey just how precious this memory is to us. This mining basin is included on the World Heritage List as an evolving, living cultural landscape. This is precious to us, combining memory with creation, patrimony with the future, heritage with the contemporary. Today, users have found their place in the town through its multifunctional program, incorporating tourist accommodation, and gates, residence for artists, and educational workshop alongside exhibition areas dedicated to themes of the mining landscape and habitat, and also the practice of gardening. It's another view. You have a look on the different parts of the project and the way they live together, the different kind of buildings, in fact, in this place. And so I will conclude with some work. To conclude, I use the title Living Memory and Open Art Project. Living Memory, why? Because for me, creation and memory are have a lot of links. On the wall of my office, you can see on this picture, opposite to my table, from where I speak to you actually, I regularly display photographs taken during site visits or trips to my project work sites, as well as some plans of old and new edifices. This is perhaps the best explanation I can give, while espousing the words of Nobel Prize winner François Jacob at its reception at the Académie Française in 1997. We are made of strange mixture of nucleic acids and memories, dreams and proteins, cells and words. As an architect, I took me a while to realize the place occupied in my project by these memories and dreams, to the extent that I would no longer be able to present my architecture or planning projects without calling upon this mental landscape consisting of all these images stored in my memory, as well as so many visions, impressions, and sensations procured by architecture, space, and light. At the origin of creation, there is always the imagination, and there could be no imagination without memory, in fact. The other point is open art project. I used to speak about architecture, the beautiful sentence made by Umberto Eco about his open artwork, his book called Open Artwork. Any work is open in that it can be interpreted in different ways without its irreducible singularity being affected. It's a beautiful sentence, a beautiful idea, and I think it's a way to conceive architecture. Architectural works can be interpreted by people. Architectural works can be transformed by use. Architectural works can be also transfigured by nature. It's a beautiful idea. I think it's an idea to to reflect the way to the future of architecture and to speak about the heritage and about the new architecture. Architecture is also, in my point of view, an art of transformation. In a world which today architecture is in the process of so many times of dismemberment, a tragic dismemberment resulting from specialization that dissociates contemporary architecture from ancient architecture, and where interior design is completely separate from architecture quite simply, and beyond city architecture or construction design, intervention on the existing building environment demonstrates just how important it is to consider architecture as an entity. The architectural heritage could not be considered like an alibi or a foil to contemporary architecture, any more than contemporary architecture could be an argument for effacing the existing building environment. The art of transformation is an act of faith in the future, in the possibility of an architectural creation, urban and landscape, unique because of the starting point of a specific substrate, a material and intangible memory of place, forming the DNA of the project and for the renewal of the site. Simultaneously, a unique and open structure, the fruit of successive actors working on various projects, which the uses to which they are put continually re-examined. Finally, where sustainability is too often approached these days solely from the environmental perspective, in terms of strictly regulatory responses, intervention on the existing built environment by bringing us face to face with architecture predating any kind of decennial guarantee, always raises for us the starkly challenging question of the sustainability of what we will be creating in relation to that which has been handed down to us. I agree. I'm very happy to have this lecture in the Mantova Architectura, and to conclude, I'll say forge links make connections. Thank you very much.